Hello everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to make a very simple saw bass in both Serum and Vital. Now this sound is one of those things that, like I said, on its own is super simple, but in context sounds great. I actually used this in my release and I'll be showing you how it sounds in just a moment, but with that said, let's go ahead and get right into it. So I do have timestamps on this video if you'd like to go to which software you're using. We're going to start with Serum here, and this is basically a more beefy version of Init Patch, like a default saw wave, like this. So we just put that in a bass key. Right now, when you load it up, it sounds like this, and we're going to make that just a little bit more interesting, and then I'll show you how it fits in context. So you just want to keep oscillator A enabled like it is by default, go to the noise oscillator, and you want to select bright white. Now this will sound like this, so it's the same thing, just a little bit noisier. There's one more very important step, which is going into the effects tab, turning on distortion, and then turning up the drive. Now there's no hard number that you want to turn this to, it depends on how beefy you want the sound to be. If we go all the way, it would sound like this, which is cool for certain things, but I don't really like that tone. I like to keep it maybe around here, so it's still kind of soft, but it does have that distortion, so it's different than when you have that off. So now if we just play a little melody, I'll show you what we have so far. Right, so that's the tone we have so far. This is super simple, but it does sound quite interesting, like I said, in the context of a track. There's a couple more things we could do before we preview that, though. Mainly turning on chorus. I like to have on some chorus for the high end specifically. This just gives you a little bit extra wideness. You might not like that effect, and that's okay, you can turn that off. And overall, that's really all it takes. There is some post-processing I would do to this, which I'm going to show you after we make the sound at Vital, because that sound is going to be the same. And let's go ahead and get right into that now by opening up Vital. And again, you're going to have a similar interface when you do load this up, which sounds like this. I'm going to turn the release down because that's a little bit different than Serum. And same thing, we are going to go over to the noise oscillator. That's obviously very loud, we want to turn that down quite a bit. And then go into effects, once again go to distortion, and by default it'll load on soft clip. I actually quite like the tone of this for that sound. And we'll turn it up a similar degree. Right, just set that down to one voice, that way there's no overlap. And that, if we do compare that to our sound that we made in Serum, obviously the one in Vital is a bit louder, and I'm going to turn this up to compensate. About there. And then in Vital. So Vital one's missing the chorus, obviously, because I haven't enabled that here. But overall, it does sound pretty much the same. And from there, we are going to go ahead and do some post-processing. So I'm going to put these both on the same mixer, because again, it's basically the same sound, just made in a different software. I'm going to turn off the chorus for this specifically, because I don't quite like it in this instance. But now we are ready to add some post-processing. I'll show you what I would do to this sound. It's really pretty simple. I just use a saturator and an EQ. So to start off, we're going to load up Saturn 2. And I do like to break this off into maybe 2 or 3 bands. We'll have one for the low end, which will sound like this on its own. For low end, I quite like using clean tube, and I'll turn up the drive a bit. Right? And then I'll split off the mids and the highs, and we'll just use some warm tape on both of them. So now it gives us this. It's a bit much, so I think I'm going to lower the mix. I like it about there, actually. Pretty good. So following that, last thing I would do is an EQ, just to kind of get rid of the unnecessary high end. Don't want to do too much, but it doesn't really need all of that. Just any adjustments I want to make. And like I said, this sound on its own, very simple. But this is actually the bass sound I used in my release Sunrise. If you're not familiar with it, it sounds like this. And here I have the bass stem, so you can see. That's all it is. And in that bit, it sounds very nice. I quite like how the bass sits in this track. Same thing over here, we could hear it a bit better. That's all it takes. So the sound, depending on where you put it, can sound very nice. I hope this helped you out. If it did, drop a like and subscribe, and also let me know in the comments what you'd like to see me cover next, and I'll see you in the next one.